Welcome back to another segment here on GEMS podcast. For those of you that are new to the community, welcome to the community. For those of you that are existing listeners, thank you so much for coming back to listen to another segment. With me today in the hot seat is a very special guest by the name of Giuseppe Grammatico. And today we're going to talk about franchising and the franchising, not the ones from the ground up, but existing franchising. So there is a differentiator there, and you're going to find out more as we continue the segment. But let me tell you a little bit more about Giuseppe. Giuseppe Grammatico has owned a number of master franchise licenses and has enjoyed a successful franchising career, guiding over 200 individuals through business ownership, many for the first time. In addition to 2 decades in franchising, he also has 20 years of sales, marketing, and management experience. He has assisted over 100 individuals and businesses with their investments and achieved over 1 billion in sales. I'm going to repeat that, y'all. 1 billion with a B. Not everyone is motivated by money and fame, and Giuseppe knows this. He takes the overwhelming guess work out of the franchising process, listening and teaching along the way, learning about his candidates' specific goals for their business and life aids in guiding them down their dream path. Those bold enough to take action on their own are the ones that realize the freedom boldness can deliver. Freedom favors the bold, he says. So without further ado, let's welcome Giuseppe Grammatico to GEMS podcast.
Thanks, Genesis. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it today.
My pleasure, Giuseppe. So before we dive into the main part of the segment, we're going to do the connection round. So there are two ways we could do this. We could either do a rapid fire game, which is 10 questions, or an icebreaker. What are you in the mood for?
I've listened to the show, and let's go rapid fire. I thought that was pretty cool.
Here we go. We're playing rapid fire with Genesis and Giuseppe. Double G's. Here we go. Question number 1. What's your favorite color?
Dark blue.
Question 2. If you could relive or recreate any significant moment in your life, what would it be?
Oh, wow. I guess when I was a kid, I see my kids home from summer and just being a kid and the freedom of just being able to play video games and not have a worry in the world.
Question 3. What's one piece of advice you wish someone would have gave you early on in life?
It's not about the end goal or I guess the end result, that you should really enjoy the journey.
Question 4. Name one challenge that you learned from in your life that really helped you build character.
One challenge. You can't control, everything is not in your control. There's certain things you control and certain things you can't control. And that gave me, that helped a lot.
Question 5. What's your drink of choice? Coffee, tea, or something else?
Coffee all the way.
Question 6. You get 3 random acts of kindness per day that you're supposed to do for someone else. What are your 3 for today?
3 acts of kindness. Oh, that's a good one. Maybe visit an elderly family member, or I should say, someone's elderly, just making sure they have a good day. Just did this, just walked the dog for a neighbor, and another one would be we just had someone in need in our town, helping with just cleaning up their landscaping. Someone that was in need and just had a death in the family. So
love it. 7. If you had the option to trade places with anyone, would you take that option? And if so, who? And if not, would you just remain yourself?
Yeah, that's a good one, and I've been asked that before, and it used to be a yes, but I'm going to say I'm happy. My life isn't perfect like anyone else's, but no, I don't think I would trade places, and I think I like my life and my family, so I'm happy.
Question 8. If you could sit down and have lunch or dinner with any person, past or present, who would it be and why?
there's a lot of people. If just because I was watching an interview, I would say someone I've been following since I was a teenager, Warren Buffett, and I just love his. It's not all about money. I like his methodology, the way he thinks, and he's been around. He's not a young guy, and he's seen a lot of things over the years. So I'm sure I'm missing some other great important people, but I'm on the spot, so we'll go with Warren.
Yeah. So I always have a challenge when someone names someone that's actually living. And it may be a wild card challenge, but a challenge is a challenge. So you can either accept or reject here. So my challenge is, since you've been watching Warren Buffett's goals and dreams and just his methodology and et cetera for some time now, I would just challenge you to reach out to his PR team or him and just say, hey, I've been following you throughout your career. This is how I feel like I can add value to you. This is how I feel like you can add value to me, because we want to make sure it's a win-win and there's
Right.
synergies there. And say, I would love to have like either a virtual coffee chat or a tea chat or even a lunch with you if you're open to it, and then just really package it up nicely. And especially with your background, 20 years of sales and marketing, you could definitely market yourself and pitch. So do you accept or reject the challenge?
I'm gonna accept it. Why not? Why? People are paying a lot of money to have breakfast with Warren, but I'm gonna go all out. I'm gonna give it a shot. I've never reached out to him, so let's see, and I'll keep you posted.
Okay, so you accept the
I
challenge and
accept it.
then you're going to keep me posted, and I'm going to give you 2 weeks, because if we put it out there and we don't hold ourselves accountable by putting a date next to it, we're not going to get it done.
Agree.
So reach out within the next 2 weeks and screenshot me so I know that you actually took the challenge and you reached out. How about that? Does that
Perfect.
sweeten the deal?
That works. That works. I like that.
Okay. Question 9. Would you rather a dream car, dream home, or who says you can't have it all? Let's have both.
Let's have them both.
Okay.
Why not?
Do you have a vision board, or um, do you have a visualization of the dream car and the dream home that you want?
I did in the past, and we definitely have our dream home, dream vehicle. We don't drive anymore, so that went out the window because I work from home now, and with COVID, everything is virtual. So, but I do, and I actually have a Google document I review every single day with my goals, things to get done and what needs to get done to get to that goal. So it's something I review religiously every single day. And I encourage everyone to have that in front of them. You're in front of your computer all day long. Definitely recommend that.
Amazing. And question 10, it's the fun question here. So it's the pass or play question. So if you pass, you're throwing it back to me and you get to ask me a question. If you choose to play, I ask one last question to wrap up rapid fire. So do you want to pass or play?
Why not? Let's play. Let's see. Let's see. I hope I don't regret this one.
So I see a yellow book in your background. Is that a
Yes.
book that you wrote, or is that a book that just helps you stay motivated?
That is my first book, called Franchise Freedom, and it's talks about my journey and the process to figure out if a franchise may be a good fit for you.
Amazing. So when we get closer in the segment to the CTA, I want you to hold that book up so we can actually see it.
Sounds good.
Amazing. And thank you for playing rapid fire, Giuseppe. Now let's jump into the main part of the segment. And I don't know if you want to grab the book now or if you want to do it later on.
Yeah, I'll grab it. Let me just, I got to disconnect here. Bear with me 1 second.
Okay, no worries.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because now since we're talking about franchising and you wrote a book about franchising, we could dive into that. But before we dive into franchising, I want to know your back end story. And the reason why I want to know your back end story, Giuseppe, is because so many times whenever we hit our milestones of success or we hit these accolades, people just see us and they want to place us on a pedestal, but no one takes the time to actually say, well, Giuseppe, how did you get to where you are?
Right.
So they could begin to like take actions and build up. They're like, oh, they just want to arrive. And it doesn't always happen that way. So
Right.
can you give us an overview of your background and what led you to the path you're on now?
Yeah, absolutely. I first generation. My family is my parents are from Italy, and they immigrated here many years ago. And my first language was actually Italian, so I learned English when I was about 6 or 7, and grew up in the restaurant industry. We had an Italian restaurant here in New Jersey. No nights. I mean, I'm sorry, no social life, because it was always nights, weekends, and holidays. But I learned a lot. That was the best experience. Although I went to school and graduate school and all that other great stuff. First person in my family to go to college. Learned most of it from the business, and learned from an early age that I wanted to be a business owner. I didn't know what business. I knew I didn't want to work necessarily or own a restaurant. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just the role. What what, the hours you have to put in, and the nights, weekends, and holidays when people are ordering food. So um, left that, or continued to work there, but took a job in the investment world. Did that. We did over $1 billion in sales, working for companies like UBS and JP Morgan and Alliance Bernstein, and made some great money, great connections, but was not fulfilled. Did not really enjoy what I was doing. I felt like I was a number. I had some great managers, and that those managers were really cool with me, as long as it didn't affect my job, to look into other things. So looked into different jobs. That didn't work out. Looked into other businesses and realized that franchising was something that piqued my interest, since I wanted a system in place that I could run with. Hired a business coach. They told me the exact same thing. What color is your parachute? And realized my parachute was systems in place. So I now have my beautiful wife, 2 kids here in New Jersey, and I said before our kids were born, I wanted to have all this in place. So in '07, I quit my job, and I purchased a couple franchises back in 2007, ran those successfully, and the person that helped me was an actual franchise coach. I became a franchise coach because I saw the effect it had on my life, and I wanted to have the same effect on other people and helping them make that decision. So, and the rest is history. I have a vision board. I put together the life I wanted, and wasn't perfect, and it wasn't exactly, it didn't go exactly as mapped out, but as long as you constantly look at those goals and those visions, that's probably the best advice I can give to everyone. Write it down, and not just look at it, but read it every day. Spend 2 minutes to review your goals. And we're here today, and I've helped well over 1,000 people. Not that they all purchased businesses, but I talked a lot of them into going back and finding a different job, because a business isn't for everyone, nor is a franchise. So that's where I spent a lot of my time as a franchise matchmaker, as I help people in that area.
I love that. And I loved hearing your background story. And I could completely resonate with the restaurant industry being taxing, not from my personal standpoint, but from my husband's standpoint. My husband was an executive chef for a number of years. And
Oh, wow.
when we first started dating, it was like he was always gone, like late nights and all of that stuff. And now, as we're transitioning to build our family, I was like, what is that going to look like, especially
Hmm.
with the newborn? Like, I need you here to help me and balance the load. So he just recently did a career transition and a pivot and doing something else outside of the chef industry. And what was a great point of reflection was actually the pandemic, because the
Hmm.
pandemic forced a lot of people to stay at home, especially when restaurants were closed down. And then when things started picking back up and he went back to work, a lot of employees didn't return back to work. So
Right.
you're the chef, you're the front of the house, you're the back of the house, and et cetera, and you're exhausted.
Hmm.
So I appreciate you talking about how your parents immigrated here from Italy. They owned a restaurant. You learned a lot of the skills and leadership and et cetera from the restaurant industry. Then you transitioned into the financial sector. So what you acquired in the restaurant industry, even though it's different from financial, you still had leadership, organization, vendor management, relationship, and all of those soft skills as well as hard skills that you applied in the financial industry that I'm sure it gave you a competitive advantage for you to be successful. Then you just felt something that was just tugging at your
Hmm.
heartstrings. Like I'm not feeling fulfilled. And then
Right.
you probably went through a period of self inventory where you started to ask yourself, what is it that Giuseppe wants to do? And how can I be fulfilled? Which led you to franchising. Would you say this is a good summary so far?
Yeah. Very, very good summary. You nailed it. Absolutely.
Which led you to franchising. And then now you're doing franchising, which is something you love to do. You can help other people, and then you're starting with the end in mind, and you're
Right.
reverse engineering it to get them where they want to be. And the reason why I say that is because now I'm a visionary life coach. So I tell people perish for not having a vision. I said, if you don't know where you want to go, how do you know how to navigate? And I say, let's use for example, GPS.
Mhm.
GPS, you have to put in the coordinates. So you may not know how to get to the final destination, but whenever you put in the final destination in the coordinates, whether you're using Apple, Google Maps, or Waze, it's
Mhm.
going to give you several different routes, and it's going to tell
Right.
you the fastest route, the toll-free route, or the longest way or whatnot. But then sometimes it's like, okay, do we want to get something quickly and then we miss the lessons along the way? Or do we want to take the long route and we have the failures, but we build upon the failures, which end up helping us with the success later on down in life?
Right. I like that. I like that a lot because that does make a huge difference in appreciation of things, and you bring a lot of experience and value to the table. So very, very well said.
Yeah. So with the franchising, since you're helping with existing franchises and not like the bootstraps out there, how did you make your differentiation between, okay, either working with a bootstrap franchise that's fresh off the ground or existing one that already had their playbook there and you're just putting your secret sauce with their playbook to create something magical?
Well, we actually work with both. We do work with emerging brands that are just getting their start. So maybe they have 2 or 3 franchises and they're growing their systems. And we work with the more established. We don't. Someone looking to develop it from an idea into a franchise. I have a partner of mine that works closely with those people. But yeah, our biggest thing is the systems that are either emerging or established franchise systems. They're always looking for great franchise companies. I'm sorry, franchisees, as they are extensions of their brand. So what we really enjoy is they have an idea, they have a franchise avatar. Especially the established brands, they know exactly who does really well. They know that it's someone that is highly organized, that has a ton of management experience, not necessary experience in the industry, such as lawn care or pets or health and beauty. But as long as they have management experience, the franchisor can teach them. The emerging brands are still sometimes figuring it out, and it takes their first 10 to 20 franchise owners to say, okay, these are the people that will do extremely well, and maybe the people in this subset they do well, but they're going to struggle a little bit because we really need someone that's more of an extrovert and more outgoing because we're doing a lot. We're finding out you need to do a lot more events. So we just love working with them to try to figure out who that avatar is and then bring them great quality families. We cover all the United States and Canada that may be a good fit. So we're not, we're matchmakers. We're not salespeople. We don't work for the brands, but we really like to bring great quality people um, you know, that we feel are a good fit, that the area is available financially, they can afford the investment, but more importantly, the role, right? It's all about the role, what they'll be doing in the business so that it's successful, they'll do well, and more importantly, it's sustainable, something they can be doing over the next 5, 10 plus years.
Thank you for sharing that, Giuseppe. And one thing I'm going to dive a little bit further back just so we're connecting the dots for the audience here.
Mhm.
So you mentioned in '07 you quit your job and then you bought 7 franchises. So when you bought the 7 franchises, what was your methodology for picking the 7 specific franchises you bought? And then the second part of this question, and I'm just going to say both questions up front and then you break it apart. So the second part is after you pick those 7 franchises that you were going to inquire about buying, which you did secure and purchase, how did you go about the capital? Because I want whoever's listening or watching this video
Mhm.
to know, okay, yes, you have to have capital to buy the
Yeah.
franchises. Not all of them are going to be affordable, but depending on what type of franchise you're buying, there may be different purchasing points.
Yeah, so lots of options there. So actually, and I apologize. I had purchased two franchises, and I apologize if I said seven accidentally, but two franchises in 2007. And I work with my coach to really break down exactly what I was looking for. And they told me right from the beginning, you don't need industry experience. You worked on Wall Street, you worked in the restaurant business, but what's the most important thing? And I said, well, I think we're going to go into some type of a recession, which we did in 2008. And I said, well, I want something that's recession resistant to an extent, right? Every business is affected in some way or another. So we were in commercial cleaning and maintenance, and we did a lot of medical surgery centers and things like that, something that was sustainable. Hospitals and surgery centers and dialysis centers all had to stay in business. So we looked at the core of the business, which is what I do. Do I want a lot of employees? I did not. So we had a lot of contractors that had their own employees. I wanted something that could recession resistant. I wanted something that had unlimited growth potential and unlimited revenue streams. And I think we had 30 revenue streams, from cleaning to restoring floors to painting to construction debris removal. And the list went on. So I wanted something that had growth that I can cover in a relatively large market and create an annuity, which is unique in that every month we knew that we were going to be billing X amount just because our customers needed the service on a daily basis. Funding was actually tricky, and I wish I knew what I knew today. I left my job. So I had funding with a bank. I won't name the bank. I will never probably bank with them ever again. But I had funding all lined up. And what happened was I left my job. And apparently that was not covered in our conversation. And right before closing, the bank pulled out and said, we didn't know you were leaving your company and your job. We cannot fund this project. And
So
that was,
can I ask a
that,
question there?
yeah.
Did they say whenever you were leaving and they backed out and pulled it, did they make it seem like it was a conflict of interest that's why they weren't going to fund you? Or was there something else that was like a gray, murky area? Just for context here.
Yeah, they backed out. It was a little bit gray. There wasn't a huge explanation, but it sounded as if I was losing my income and I was doing well working in my last corporate job. But I also had my wife's income coming in, so they felt like maybe it was a little too risky for them because they thought that with the income coming in from my job, I was going to run the business on the side. I viewed it the complete opposite. I said I was going to quit my job and run this business full time so I can dedicate 100% of my time and effort. So it was very gray. I was dealing with someone over the phone. It wasn't like an in-person meeting. So very vague, and they backed out. And needless to say, I closed all my accounts with that bank, never to do business with them again, because I felt like they truly led me on to believe that they were going to give me this loan. So last minute, because of timing and when I wanted to open, and I recently resigned with notice, I took a loan from my grandparents who funded the entire project, and I was able to pay them back over the next couple of years. So it was not an ideal situation, but knowing what I know today, and for whatever reason, maybe this didn't come up in conversation. And for everyone listening in, you don't know what you don't know. And I wish my coach had brought this up, and I make sure to cover this on the first call. There are numerous ways to fund a franchise. Number one being, which is something I had readily available, you could fund a franchise with your retirement money, penalty free. And most people do not know that. And I did not know that. And this is, it's probably been 40 plus years that this has been around. So I wish I had known that. I would have went that route. But anyway, things happen and you learn. So, but what we do is on our first conversation, just like when you buy a home, you want to be, you want to know your options. So in our first conversation, we put you in touch with our funding partner, and they'll do a full review and give you all your options: retirement, rollovers, home equity lines of credit, SBA loans. And, some of those options they'll offer in-house, and others you'll have to go back to your bank or mortgage company to, for example, get a line of credit. It's a free service, and you only pay if you decide to move forward with any of the products that they offer. And there are tons of options. You do need capital. This isn't a no money down kind of deal that you see in, after midnight on some of these infomercials. But Some franchise companies will, maybe offer financing directly. If you've served in the military, there are discounts available. If in some cases it's a combination, and maybe a home equity line of credit and a combination of a retirement, so rollover. So a really good funding partner will sit down and really review those options. But ideally, you're going to need to have some skin in the game. Any bank, any lender is going to want that, unless you just use all your money and just use all your retirement.
So another question here, really quick, since you're talking about the different ways to get
Mhm.
funded, what about grant writing? Because I know other businesses are affiliated with grant writings, and then you did mention the SBA, so the Small Business
Mhm.
Association. For those of you listening in, sometimes they do give certain types of funding, especially for minority businesses, because the government has certain money in different pools that if you're a minority and you identify a certain way, you get an extra kickback.
Correct. Yeah. With grants, I encourage everyone for their state to look that up and figure out if they qualify. And they'll work directly with the franchise companies. Same thing with qualification. SBA, same thing. They'll do a pre-qualification, and that's a loan. Where you have to typically pay that back in 10 years, and they have different types of SBA loans, but the government is backing that loan up, and they want to make sure that you qualify, and there are going to be certain criteria. They're going to, give you things such as, for one of the loans, if there's real estate involved, you have to have a lease signed before they would actually give you the funding. They're going to expect you to put so much down. I'm not as familiar with all the grant options, and from my understanding, it does vary by state. So you would, Google that to see what you would be able to get if you qualify, and then working with the franchisor as far as more of a time frame as to when you would have access to those funds. The SBA, you're looking at 2 to 4 months depending on their product, the type of SBA loan, and if there's real estate involved, that's going to take a little bit longer. But the good news is you have options. And here's the secret: there's no one option is not better than the next. It's what you're comfortable with. When I worked on Wall Street, I said, never touch your retirement money. My tune has changed. I would be completely open to getting out of the stock market and investing in myself and into my own business. And that's using your own money, and you don't have to worry about a loan payment. And that may be nagging at you every month. You have to pay this $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 note payment. Some people don't mind. They would rather use someone else's money, which is fine, and pay that back over time. So it's really what you're going to be most comfortable with. It's a stressful time, and as well as an exciting time. So you do what's best for you, and not compare yourself to others.
Thank you for sharing that. And one thing that I would add on to that is for someone who may have that 401k and you're transitioning and doing a rollover, or if you're fortunate to have a 401k plus a pension, which I've been in that arena. So when I got laid off from oil and gas in 2021, I was fortunate to be fully vested in my pension. So there
Mm.
was a loophole that I found out where I could actually take out my pension before 59 and a half and roll it over. And
Oh,
I
wow.
know that if you work with a financial advisor or a planner, you may be able to use some of that money without worrying about the penalties.
Right.
I'm not an expert in that, so I would just say I encourage you to talk to someone who is an expert in that so you could do your due
Absolutely.
diligence and just be mindful. And then another thing I recently learned by all the people I talk to um, daily is kickstarting. So some people use
Mm.
kickstarting and different ways to, fund their businesses for bootstrap. And I'm not sure if that would apply here in this context for franchising. So Giuseppe, since you have more experience than I do, well, how do you feel about kickstarting and those fundraisers that some people are doing now?
Yeah, I have not worked with someone that has tried that. I mean, in reality or in theory, I guess it could work. They'll be investing essentially in you. So as long as there's some type of, they'll own X amount of the business, or they'll get certain percentage of the distribution, I guess it could work. But you just have to be very clear on the terms, what exactly you're raising money for. Is it going to be all your endeavors going forward? Is it a specific franchise? So I guess it could be set up that way. I don't know all the ins and outs that. It's definitely not my forte. So I wish I can say more.
No, no worries. And I would just say from my background, if y'all are going to go into business with someone, make sure that you're protecting your intellectual property, which is your IP. Make sure there's NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. Make sure there's non-competes and et cetera. Because when money is involved in certain situations and you're not the sole owner, things could get very murky, especially if that business partner decides to transition, because you may not have all the capital up front, but you may have someone that wants to partner where y'all are acting as co-owners for that franchise. So always make sure that you have your ducks in a row, you dot all your I's and cross all your T's, and go consult with someone like Giuseppe, have a financial advisor, have an accountant, and all the key people lined up before you make that transition. And don't just do it off of emotion. Just do your market research analysis. Ask yourself, what am I going to get ROI, your return on investment, and et cetera. And Giuseppe, I want to throw you an audible, so I'm respectful of our time commitment before we jump into the CTA of the segment. Is there anything else that I did not ask you that you want to share that will add value to the franchising part of the conversation? And I know you have that book, so we'll do that in the CTA.
Yeah, I mean, it's do your research. We don't charge a fee for what we do, and I really encourage anyone that has thought about owning a business. You have options. You have different ways of funding, as we talked about, but more importantly, bet on yourself. Being an employee is great, and it's not a knock at being an employee, because without employees, businesses couldn't run. But if you're interested in exploring franchises, people kind of say, yeah, that's not a good fit for me, but they don't know the true story. And I'll leave you with, you can be an employee full time and have a franchise on the side. And that franchise on the side, maybe the goal is not necessarily to make money, but it may be your future home where you can transition out of your job. So when people hear that, their ears kind of, their eyes light up, and they're like, wow, when I think of a side business, I think of selling baseball cards to the side when I was a kid, or cutting lawns on the side. But you can have a legitimate empire on the side while keeping your job. And then once it gets to the point where maybe it covers your current income, you can transition out. And that's been a very common strategy from people I work with daily. So bet on yourself. I encourage everyone. We do a 20-minute call just to learn. It's all education. And then from there, deciding if it may or may not sound like a good fit.
Amazing. So let's jump into the CTA. That was a great way to segue. So the CTA, please link your book. Let's talk about the book briefly. So for those of them that are interested in learning more about franchising, you put all your knowledge that you acquired in that book, and then plug your website, how they could get a hold of you, and where you primarily hang out on social media.
Yep. So here's the book, Franchise Freedom. And I was original. We have a podcast also called Franchise Freedom. So but it's not all about franchising. So the website is GG, my initials, because my name is very difficult to spell. So GG, the franchise guide, GUIDE. So ggthefranchiseguide.com. And that's what you need, that website. And you can download this book today for free. So if you want access to the book, it's a free download. Our podcast is there. We just hit our 100th episode, and we talk about, it was a big, thank you. It was a big accomplishment. I figured I'd try it and see what happens, but 2 years of shows. And we talk about every topic from selling businesses to stories of employee to employer. We have a blog that we're going to start, writing on again, and you can schedule a call on there, just book a call. It's on every single page. It's a 20-minute call. Our service is always free, but that 20-minute call is not to show you franchises. We don't do that typically until the third call. It's simply one thing, to learn about you and figure out if a franchise is the right fit. We'll tell you what that will look like, but we will help you, at least rule out or decide if it may sound like a good fit. So you have the book, the podcast, the blog. You could book a call. You could send me a message. And for those that are just not ready to have a conversation, that's cool. 25 FAQs, your 25 top questions I get every single day. And I'll just plug another book while I'm here. One of the best marketing books I've ever read. They ask, you answer. And so my comment to this book is, you asked, I answered. 25 questions I get daily unfiltered, no BS. It's extremely direct. It's honest, and it's not to sell you on franchising. In many cases, I tell people, if you can't follow a system, if you're looking to change the system, don't buy a franchise. And have a longer conversation there. So check it out. I'd love to chat and hear from you. And if you have a question, it may be a future blog. So any questions, I'll answer that directly, and maybe create a piece of content around your question.
Amazing. And thank you so much, Giuseppe, for coming into the community and just sharing your knowledge and your business acumen on GEMS podcast. Audience, all of Giuseppe's contact information will be in the show notes. The main link is ggguide.com, and that will have all of his information with the backlinks to where else his podcast is, his socials, and etc. So you don't need to worry about going to multiple places. There's a one-stop shop. And make sure you like, comment, follow, and subscribe. We're on 40 plus platforms. You can see the video to this recording on our YouTube channel by going to GEMS, GEMS, with Genesis Amaris Kemp. And lastly, but not least, where would I be without my supporters? You know I only think about you. I want to thank you for supporting the subject matter experts that come on the show, as well as the mission behind the podcast, which is a movement we're creating to bring content that is educational, inspirational, and motivational while we intersect diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. My big ASK, from you is brand sponsorship. We would like to continue spreading this message and the movement. So if that is you, you could have your products and services ranked right here with us in the top 2% globally out of 2.8 million podcasts per the metrics on www.listennotes.com is where you can fact check me and find more info by going to genesisamariscamp.net or sending me a personalized email to genesisamariscamp@gmail.com. So until the next guest, next segment, peace, love, and lots of blessings. Have yourself an amazing day.